The Tale of the Three Horsemen by Joseph Holloway. There were once 3 horsemen, astride 3 great steeds. The first was the strongest, armed with a mighty battle-axe, and rode upon a huge brown shire horse. The second was the nimblest, armed with a rapier, and rode a white mustang. Finally, there was the third, the smartest, and armed with a crossbow. His horse was a beautiful black Arab. One stormy night, the 3 horsemen crossed the border into the land of Wales, and there suddenly happened upon a gypsy. The old woman grinned a toothless, ugly grin and said, "Ho there, horseman, hold a moment." The strongest horseman stepped forward. "Out of the way, old hag. We have much fortune to seek in the land of Wales. The prince himself has requested our presence." The old gypsy woman beamed, her one tooth flashing but for a moment in a quick flash of lightning. "If it is fortune from the prince that you seek, then you must seek the Prince of Wales' treasure." The nimblest horseman stepped forward, rolling his eyes. "Where is this treasure you speak of?" "Journey to the forest which knows no sun. Journey past stone which has been undone. Then journey swift past the night's cruel eyes. Then a treasure is yours, and yours to prize." The cleverest horseman finally stepped forward. "We thank you, gypsy woman. We leave you in peace." And together they rode off into the stormy night. "The old woman's mad," said the stronger horseman. "Aye, though we will go onward none the less," said the cleverest, and sure enough the next morning the 3 horsemen began their search for the treasure. They searched and searched until finally they found the darkest forest they had ever seen. "This must be the forest which knows no sun," said the cleverest horseman. The others agreed. Once they all entered the forest, an eerie feeling came over them as the last light from the sun vanished. However, they kept on riding and riding until their way was blocked by a huge cracked stone. Looking around, they found themselves in what looked like the ruins of an ancient castle. "Well, my friend," said the smartest of the horsemen, turning to the strongest, "this must be the stone which has become undone. If you would." The strongest horseman smiled, and dismounting his steed, gathered up all the strength he could muster, and placed both hands under the stone and heaved. The boulder shook, then slowly began to rise out of the dirt, until finally the strongest held the stone clear above his head and tossed it out of the way with a crash. The 3 horsemen rode on. They kept on riding and riding through the shadowed forest until they came to a strange sight. They found themselves in a large clearing with moonlight shining on a large square platform, making it impossible for the 3 horsemen to pass. The cleverest horseman thought for a moment, then said, "Aha! Journey swift past the night's cruel gaze. We dare not touch the light." The swiftest horseman stepped out. "Why? What happens when we do?" With that, he threw a twig into the white light, which almost immediately burst into brilliant white flames. "Well, my friend," said the cleverest, turning to the swiftest. And the swiftest horseman smiled and dismounted. Gathering up his black cloak around his face, he rubbed both hands together, preparing himself. Then with incredible speed, sped past the light, cutting a tree branch with his rapier, which snapped back to the tree and forced the platform into the shade, allowing the 2 other horsemen safe passage past the burning white light. The 3 horsemen rode on. A little while later, after riding and riding, they came upon a glinting gold glow upon the horizon. Looking excitedly from one to the other, the 3 horsemen sped their horses up into a gallop. They galloped and galloped until, sure enough, as they crossed the horizon, their eyes were met with a glorious clearing, filled with gold, jewellery and trinkets in every corner. At the same time they saw, sat upon a heap of gold, a young maiden, tied to a stake of wood in the ground. The strongest and swiftest horseman laughed in triumph and raced forward. When the young maiden saw them, she beamed and shouted, "Please, please, good sirs, choose me." Choose me? They came to a stop, confused. "You good 3 horsemen will only be able to leave this place with one object. Every other group that has completed the trial has taken a piece of jewellery or treasure and left me for dead." The cleverest horseman was transfixed by the maiden's beauty. Thinking for a moment, he turned to the others. "My friends, we must rescue the maiden." The swiftest horseman and the strongest looked at him, angered. "We should take the treasure," growled the strongest. "Aye, we've suffered much to get here. We deserve a reward." "Indeed we have," said the cleverest. "But my friends, there is plenty of treasure out there. But there is only one of this maiden in the entire world." The 2 horsemen looked at each other, unsure. Reluctantly, however, the swiftest and strongest agreed to help. The maiden was untied, and no sooner had they left the clearing, the gold and magnificent jewels vanished, leaving nothing behind except an empty clearing. It was a long march back to the capital where the young maiden said she was from. The cleverest horseman discovered he had fallen very much in love with her, and she with him. Upon returning to the capital city, an enormous crowd had gathered outside the gates. When they saw the maiden, they cheered and shouted with glee, "Our lady has returned! Our lady!" The 3 horsemen were then led to a castle, where none other than the Prince of Wales stood, beaming happily. "Father!" shouted the young maiden, and hugged him tightly. The 3 horsemen looked at each other in shock. "Father?" Suddenly, the Prince of Wales stood forth and said, you brave 3 horsemen, have delivered me my greatest treasure." The cleverest horseman smiled. "The prince's treasure," he muttered to himself. The prince continued, "Is there any way I can repay you?" The horseman did not need to be asked twice. The strongest asked for his weight in gold. The swiftest asked for a bag of the most valuable jewels. However, the smartest of the 3 wished only for the young maiden's hand in marriage, which the prince happily agreed. Though the cleverest horseman and the Welsh princess were married the next day, and though the 3 comrades were separated by fate from that day on, they would forever be known as the 3 horsemen, and lived happily ever after.